I woke up on the morning of my college graduation. Again. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Can't wait to celebrate with you tonight. You're going to kill that Meridian Tech interview next week. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. In my first life, I'd screamed when I read those words. I thought Sarah was my best friend. My ride or die since freshman year. I'd told her everything about that interview, how Meridian Tech was my dream company, how I'd spent months preparing, how the junior marketing associate position was perfect for me. I'd told her about the unpaid project assistant internship too, how it was my backup plan, how I'd laughed about it. Who even takes unpaid positions anymore? I deleted her text without responding because I remembered what happened next. I remembered walking into that interview, confident and prepared, only to have the hiring manager look confused. I'm sorry, he'd said, but we already filled this position. Your friend Sarah came in 2 days ago with an incredible portfolio. Wait, wasn't that your campaign work she presented? She'd stolen my portfolio. She'd called in a favor with her uncle who knew someone on the board. She'd interviewed for my position with my work and gotten my job. And when I'd confronted her, she'd laughed. Come on, you'll find something else. I needed this. My parents cut me off, remember? You have your trust fund. I didn't have a trust fund. I'd been working 3 jobs to pay for school while she partied on her parents' dime until they finally got tired of her failures. In my first life, I'd taken the unpaid internship at a tiny startup called Vertex Solutions. I'd worked there for free for 6 months, barely scraping by, while Sarah posted Instagram photos of her Meridian Tech office with captions like, had a dream job, had blessed, had girl boss. Then Vertex folded. I'd ended up in retail for 2 years before finding a mediocre marketing coordinator role. Sarah had climbed the ladder at Meridian, always staying just ahead of me, always reminding me of the gap between us. Until she'd emailed me 5 years later. Hey, long time. My boss is looking for someone junior to assist on a project. Thought of you. It's contract work, no benefits. But it's Meridian Tech. Let me know. I'd been so desperate to prove myself that I'd said yes. I'd worked under her for 8 months, doing her grunt work while she took credit. When the project succeeded, she got promoted to senior director. I got a thank you card. The last time I saw Sarah was at her engagement party. She'd pulled me aside, drunk on champagne and victory. You know what's funny? I always knew I'd end up here and you'd end up wherever you are. Some people are just meant for bigger things. 2 weeks later, I'd died in a car accident on my way to another dead-end interview. And then I'd woken up here. Graduation day. The interview invitation still in my inbox. This time, I knew the truth that Sarah didn't. Meridian Tech was going to be irrelevant in 18 months. The CEO was cooking the books. The SEC investigation would start in a year. Everyone would scramble to jump ship, but their reputations would be tainted by association. But Vertex Solutions? In my first life, I'd left right before everything changed. 3 months into my unpaid internship, the founder, Marcus Chen, had gotten a meeting with a venture capital firm. I'd never known about it because I'd already mentally checked out, going through the motions while applying elsewhere. I'd only learned the truth years later when Vertex became one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. Marcus had sold it for $2.3 billion. The early team members, the ones who'd stuck it out through those brutal, unpaid months, had become millionaires from their equity shares. Even the interns, especially the one who'd helped Marcus perfect his pitch deck in those desperate early days. In my first life, Jason. He'd become Vertex's chief marketing officer at 24. This time, it was going to be me. I didn't block Sarah's number. I needed her to think everything was going according to her plan. 3 days before my Meridian interview, I texted her. I'm so nervous. Can we meet for coffee? I want to run through my presentation with you. She responded immediately. Of course, that's what friends are for. We met at our usual spot. I brought my portfolio, the real one with all my best campaign work from my senior projects. I watched her eyes light up as I walked her through each piece. This is incredible, she said, her fingers already itching toward the folder. Can I take a few photos? Just to hype you up to some of my marketing friends? Sure, I said, sliding it across the table. She took photos of everything. I watched her hands tremble slightly with excitement. She thought she was so clever, so smooth. She had no idea I was handing her a loaded gun pointed at her own head. Because that portfolio, I'd deliberately filled it with work that looked impressive but was strategically flawed. Campaigns that seemed brilliant on the surface but had fundamental problems any experienced marketer would catch immediately. Not obvious enough for Sarah to notice. She'd always been more about aesthetics than strategy. But glaring enough that Meridian's VP of marketing would see right through them. "You're going to kill it," Sarah said, hugging me. Over her shoulder, I saw her phone light up with a text to an unknown number. "Got the goods?" Her uncle. She was already putting her plan in motion. "Thanks." I said, I really hope I get this. It would change everything." She said. The lie came so easily to her. I have a good feeling about it. 2 days later, Sarah texted me. "OMG, emergency. My uncle can get me a last-minute interview at Meridian for that same position. I know it's your thing, but this might be my only chance to get my foot in the door somewhere real. You understand, right? You'll still have your interview." I stared at the message for a long time. In my first life, I'd been too shocked to respond. By the time I'd gathered my thoughts, she'd already done the interview and charmed her way into an offer. This time, I wrote back, "Go for it. You deserve this. I actually just got another opportunity anyway, an internship at this startup called Vertex Solutions. It's unpaid, but it sounds like a good learning experience." The three dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came. "An unpaid internship? After you graduate? Are you serious?" I know it sounds bad, but the founder seems really innovative. I think it could be good for my resume. "Babe, no. You're worth more than that. Wait for Meridian to call you back." I already accepted. They need me to start Monday. There was a long pause, then, "Okay, if you're sure, but when this doesn't work out, let me know. I'll put in a good word for you at Meridian once I'm established there." Once she was established there with my stolen work. I smiled at my phone. "Thanks. Good luck with your interview." Monday morning, I walked into Vertex Solutions' barely furnished office. There were 5 of us interns, unpaid college grads desperate enough to work for free on the promise of experience and potential equity. Marcus Chen was 32, running on coffee and desperation. The company was 3 months from going under. He was brilliant but scattered, full of ideas but drowning in execution. I'd lived this before on the periphery, checking out. This time I paid attention. "All right," Marcus said, looking at us with exhausted hope. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be brutal. We're building something revolutionary, AI-powered personalized learning platforms that adapt in real time to student needs, but we're running out of runway. I have one meeting with Vanguard Ventures in 3 months. If I can't convince them to fund us, we're done." The other interns shifted nervously. I raised my hand. "Yes, Marcus glanced at his notes. "Emma, I can help with the pitch deck," I said. "I did my thesis on VC funding patterns in EdTech. I know what Vanguard specifically looks for." That was a lie. I didn't do that thesis in my first life. But I'd spent 5 years watching Marcus's interviews after Vertex exploded, studying every detail of his origin story. I knew exactly what had worked. Marcus's eyes sharpened. "You studied Vanguard specifically?" "Every major EdTech investment they've made in the last decade. I know their portfolio, their typical return expectations, their bias towards scalable B2B models over direct-to-consumer. I was reciting things I'd learned from future articles, from Marcus's own retrospective interviews. And I know they care less about current revenue than user engagement metrics and retention data. Can you put together an analysis? I can have it to you by tomorrow." The other interns looked at me like I was insane, volunteering for more unpaid work. They didn't know that in 3 months, Marcus would offer equity to anyone who'd contributed meaningfully to that Vanguard pitch. They didn't know that equity would one day be worth millions. Meanwhile, Sarah was posting constantly. Photos of the Meridian tech lobby. "First day at my dream company." Her new desk, her team, lunch with her manager. She texted me too. How's the unpaid thing going? You can still get out, you know. I could maybe ask about junior positions here. I'm good, I replied. Actually really enjoying it. Emma, babe, I love your optimism, but be realistic. You can't work for free forever. I didn't respond. I was too busy building the foundation of Marcus's empire. I worked 16-hour days. I rebuilt the entire pitch deck from scratch, using every technique I'd learned from watching successful startups in my previous life. I analyzed Vanguard's portfolio companies and identified the exact language patterns their partners responded to. I created financial projections that were aggressive but believable. Backed by engagement data, I helped Marcus's tech team prioritize collecting. The other interns quit, one by one, when they realized this wasn't a resume line. It was a barely afloat company asking for free labor. I stayed. Marcus noticed. You know I can't pay you, right? Not yet. Maybe not for months. I know. Then why are you still here? Because I'd already lived the alternative. Because I knew Sarah's dream job was a ticking time bomb. Because I knew that in 3 months, everything would change. But I said, because I believe in what we're building. And because when this works, I want to be the part of it. Something shifted in his expression. Respect. Trust. If we get this funding, he said quietly, you'll get equity, real equity. I don't care that you're an intern. You've done the work of a CMO. Deal. 2 months in, Sarah's post changed tone. Crazy day at work. With a photo of her looking stressed. Sometimes you have to put in the long hours to prove yourself. Then, does anyone else's boss expect them to be available 24/7, or is that just startup culture at a corporate place? I didn't ask what was wrong. I was too busy preparing for the Vanguard meeting. Marcus was a wreck the night before. What if they hate it? What if I freeze up? Emma, this is everything. If this doesn't work, it's going to work, I said. You know this pitch inside and out. You know the data. You believe in the product. You sound very confident for an unpaid intern. Maybe that's why I'm still here. He laughed, some of the tension breaking. Okay, let's do this. The Vanguard meeting was on a Tuesday. I wasn't in the room. I was just an intern. But I'd coached Marcus through every possible question, every objection, every pivot. I'd helped him practice until the pitch was smooth as glass. I waited in the Vertex office with my heart pounding, memories of my first life swirling. This was the moment. This was where Jason had helped Marcus, where the trajectory had changed. Except this time, it was me. Marcus came back 3 hours later, pale and silent. My stomach dropped. Had I gotten it wrong? Had my interference changed things? Broken something? Then he looked up at me and his face split into the biggest grin I'd ever seen. They're in, he whispered. 12 million. Series A. They're fucking in. I couldn't breathe. 12 million. In my first life, it had been 8 million. I'd actually improved it. Marcus grabbed my shoulders. Emma, you did this. That pitch deck, that analysis, the way you positioned our retention data, the partner said it was the most compelling ed tech pitch he'd seen in 5 years. You delivered it, I said, but I was grinning too, my heart soaring. We delivered it, together. He stepped back, professional again, but his eyes were bright. I meant what I said about equity. My lawyer is drawing up the paperwork. You're getting 2% of the company. 2%. 2% of what would eventually be $2.3 billion, $46 million, for 3 months of unpaid work. I thought about Sarah, posting photos of her Meridian Tech employee badge, bragging about her $52,000 starting salary. I thought about how she'd stolen my work, my opportunity, my dream. I thought about how she'd laughed at my unpaid internship. Thank you, I managed. Thank you, Marcus. No, he said. Thank you. You bet on me when no one else would. That's not something I'll forget. The 3rd month hit, and everything accelerated. Vanguard's funding was announced. Tech blogs picked it up. Vertex Solutions raises $12 for revolutionary AI learning platform. Marcus started hiring, real positions, real salaries. I want you as director of marketing, he told me. Salary, benefits, and your equity stays. You've earned both. I was 22 years old with a title that usually took a decade to reach. Sarah texted me that same week. Did I see that your little startup got funded? That's great. See, I told you to stick it out. She had no idea what was coming, because that same week, the first whispers started about Meridian Tech. A business journal article buried in the back pages. SEC opens inquiry into Meridian Tech accounting practices. Sarah didn't mention it. Maybe she didn't see it. Maybe she thought it would blow over. It wouldn't. 3 months and 2 days after I started at Vertex, my phone rang from an unknown number. I knew who it was before I answered. I'd been waiting for this call. Hello? Emma, this is Richard Lawson, VP of Marketing at Meridian Tech. My heart raced, but my voice stayed calm. Hi, Richard. What can I do for you? I'll cut to the chase. We have an opening on my team. Our junior marketing associate just isn't working out. Your name came up through our recruitment channels, and when I looked into your background, I was impressed. Very impressed. I saw you're at Vertex Solutions now, but I wanted to reach out personally. I appreciate that, I said carefully. Can I ask what happened with your current junior associate? There was a pause. Between you and me? She interviewed well, had a strong portfolio, but the work product hasn't matched. I've had to redo most of her campaigns myself. The portfolio she showed us turned out to be, well, we discovered some inconsistencies. Inconsistencies. That was a polite way of saying they'd figured out she'd stolen my work and that my work had fatal flaws I'd deliberately included. I see. Anyway, we're looking for someone with a real strategic thinking. Someone who can grow with us. I know Vertex is exciting right now with the funding, but we can offer stability, better benefits, a clear path to senior roles. Mr. Lawson, I interrupted gently. I appreciate the offer, I really do, but I'm very happy where I am. We could beat whatever Vertex is paying you. Name your number. I thought about Sarah, sitting in her Meridian Tech office, probably listening to this conversation somehow, realizing her boss was trying to recruit me, the girl she'd sabotaged, the girl she'd mocked for taking an unpaid internship. It's not about the money, I said. I have equity at Vertex. I'm building something from the ground up with a team I believe in. Meridian is a great company, but it's not the right fit for me. Not to mention that in 6 months, Meridian would be a sinking ship, and everyone associated with it would be scrambling to distance themselves from the scandal. Another pause. Richard sounded genuinely disappointed. I understand. If you change your mind, please reach out. And Emma, I'm sorry we didn't connect with you the first time around. I think we made a mistake. Thank you, I said. Good luck with everything. I hung up and stared at my phone. Sarah called me 30 seconds later. Emma, did Richard Lawson just call you? I could hear the panic in her voice, the confusion, the desperate need to understand how this had happened. He did, I said calmly. What did he want? He offered me your job. Silence. Long, stretching silence. He what? Well, not my job specifically, your job. The junior marketing associate position. He said the current person isn't working out. Emma, you can't. This is my company. I got you that interview originally, remember? You wouldn't even know about Meridian if not for me. Actually, Sarah, I had the interview scheduled before you stole it, remember? I didn't steal anything. You said I could apply. You're right. In this timeline, you asked permission. How generous of you. I kept my voice light, pleasant. But it doesn't matter. I turned him down. You turned him down? I'm happy at Vertex. We just got $12 million in funding. Marcus promoted me to director of marketing, and I have equity. I let that word hang there. Equity, the thing Sarah had laughed about, the thing she'd thought was worthless. Equity in a startup is basically lottery tickets, she said, but her voice was shaking. Emma, be smart about this. Meridian is established. We have real benefits, real structure. How established? I asked softly. Have you seen the SEC inquiry? The line went quiet. That's nothing. Corporate formality stuff. My manager said, your manager is Richard Lawson, who just tried to replace you with me. What exactly did he say? You're being paranoid, and honestly kind of cruel. I thought we were friends. We were, I said. In my first life, we were best friends. You were the person I trusted most in the world. What are you talking about? First life? Nothing. Forget it. I took a breath. Look, Sarah, I hope things work out for you at Meridian. I really do, but I need to go. I have a meeting with our new head of sales. Emma? I hung up. Then I blocked her number. 6 months later, the Meridian Tech scandal broke wide open. The CEO was arrested. The SEC investigation revealed years of fraudulent accounting. The stock price collapsed. Massive layoffs hit every department. Sarah's LinkedIn updated to looking for new opportunities, with a desperate summary about being caught in an unfortunate corporate situation beyond my control. She tried to email me. Emma, I know we haven't talked, but I'm in a tough spot. I saw Vertex is hiring for a senior marketing coordinator position. Could you put in a word for me? I'd even take a pay cut at this point. Please, I'm really struggling. I didn't respond. A week later, she sent another email. I'm sorry for everything. I know I wasn't always a good friend. I know I took things that weren't mine. I was jealous and stupid, and I thought I deserved it more. But I'm drowning here, and you're the only person I know who's actually succeeding. Please, I'm begging you. I stared at that email for a long time. In my first life, she'd never apologized. She'd never even acknowledged what she'd done. She'd gone to her grave, my grave, thinking she'd won fair and square. Maybe this version of her, humbled by consequences, could actually grow, could actually change. But that wasn't my responsibility. I wrote back, Sarah, I appreciate the apology, I do, but I'm not in a position to help you get a job at Vertex. My recommendation means something here, and I can't vouch for someone who built their career on stolen work and sabotage. I hope you find something that works out. Good luck. Then I archived the email and got back to work. 1 year after graduation, Vertex Solutions had grown to 200 employees. We'd expanded into corporate training, government contracts, international markets. Marcus was on the cover of Forbes 30 Under 30. I was on the 30 Under 30 list, too, right below him. Emma Chen, no relation, 23, Director of Marketing at Vertex Solutions, helped secure the company's crucial Series A funding and has driven user growth of 400% year over year. My 2% equity was already worth $8 million on paper, and we were just getting started. I never heard from Sarah again directly, but I saw her career trajectory through mutual connections. She bounced around for a while. Coordinator roles, contract positions, always explaining the gap on her resume from Meridian. Eventually, she found something stable at a mid-sized firm. Nothing glamorous, nothing special, exactly the kind of career she'd assumed I would have. Sometimes I thought about reaching out. Not to gloat, but to explain. To tell her about the rebirth, the second chance, the cosmic joke of it all. But what would be the point? She'd made her choices. In both lives, she'd chosen betrayal over friendship, shortcuts over integrity, my success over hers. And in both lives, the universe had given her exactly what she deserved. 3 years after graduation, Marcus called me into his office with an unusual expression. We have an offer, he said. For what? For Vertex. Tech Corp wants to acquire us. $2.3 billion. My heart stopped. The exact number from my first life. Despite everything I'd changed, we'd still ended up here. Some things were destiny. What do you think? Marcus asked. I think you should take it, I said. You've built something incredible. You deserve this. We built it, he corrected, you and me and the team. And you're going to walk away with He did the math in his head. Roughly $46 million. $46 million. For believing in the right person. For taking the unpaid internship. For betting on myself when everyone else counted me out. There's one condition, Marcus added. Tech Corp wants me to stay on as president of the Vertex division. And they want you as VP of marketing for the whole company. They were very specific about that. They said your strategic vision was a key asset they were acquiring. I thought about Sarah, who'd wanted so badly to climb the corporate ladder. I thought about how I'd just been offered a VP position at one of the biggest tech companies in the world at 25. Tell them yes. The acquisition closed 4 months later. The day the money hit my account, I sat in my apartment, the nice apartment I'd moved into 6 months ago when I could finally afford it, and stared at the number. 46,000 mine. I thought about my first life. Working retail after Vertex folded. Begging Sarah for contract work at Meridian. Dying in a car accident on the way to an interview I wouldn't have gotten. I thought about the moment I'd woken up on graduation day, given an impossible gift, knowledge, foreknowledge. I'd used it carefully, not to cheat, not to steal, but to make better choices, to trust the right people, to see value where others saw worthlessness, to take the unpaid internship that everyone laughed at. My phone buzzed, a LinkedIn notification. Sarah Williams has viewed your profile. I clicked through. Her profile had been updated. She was at a consulting firm now, mid-level, fine, but unremarkable. Her summary still mentioned pivoting from Meridian Tech during industry challenges. She'd viewed my profile 17 times in the last month. I knew what she saw. VP of Marketing at Tech Corp. Featured in Business Insider, Fortune, Bloomberg. The Vertex acquisition story that mentioned me by name as one of the key architects of the company's meteoric rise. She knew now, she had to know, that the unpaid internship she'd mocked had been the winning lottery ticket, that the paid position she'd stolen had been a golden trap, that I'd known all along. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Emma, it's Sarah. I hadn't heard her voice in 3 years. She sounded older, tired. How did you get this number? I still have mutual friends. Look, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I had to call. I saw the acquisition news. I saw your promotion. I've been thinking about everything that happened. Okay. You knew, didn't you? When you took that internship at Vertex, you somehow knew it would become this. I smiled. She'd never believed the truth. I made a bet, I said. On the right person at the right time. The bet I should have made? Maybe. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. I know I don't deserve your help or your friendship or anything from you. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Really sorry. For everything I did, for taking your interview, your work, your opportunity, for laughing at you, for being a terrible friend. It sounded genuine. In my first life, she'd never reached this point of self-awareness. But it was also 3 years too late. I appreciate that, I said. Truly. Can I ask you one thing? Sure. How did you know to take the unpaid internship? To stay when everyone else quit? How did you know to bet on Vertex when it looked like nothing? I thought about telling her. About the rebirth, the second chance, the cosmic do-over. But the truth was simpler than that. I learned to see value where others see worthlessness, I said. I learned that the path everyone else wants is usually crowded for a reason. And I learned that sometimes the best opportunities look like trash until you're brave enough to dig through the garbage. That's very philosophical. I had a lot of time to think about it. During those unpaid months when you were posting photos of your Meridian Tech office. She was quiet for a moment. I deserved that. Yeah, you did. Emma. Is there any chance we could ever be friends again? Not now, obviously, but someday. I know I destroyed what we had, but I'm different now. Losing everything, watching you succeed, it changed me. Looked out my apartment window at the city skyline. In my first life, I died without ever seeing this view, this success, this version of myself. Sarah had been part of that death, even if she'd never known it. I don't think so, I said gently. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. But I hope you find happiness, Sarah. I really do. Just not with me. I understand, her voice cracked. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. You deserved all of this. I know, I said, and I meant it. I hung up and blocked the number. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work. TechCorp wanted my strategy for the next quarter, and I had ideas. Big ideas. The kind that would reshape the industry, the kind that came from living twice, learning hard lessons, and refusing to waste a second chance. My phone buzzed one more time. Marcus texting from the TechCorp executive floor. Team meeting at 4. Want to grab coffee after? I'm buying. I figure I owe you about 46 million coffees. I smiled and texted back. You don't owe me anything. We built this together. Still buying the coffee. See you at 4, partner. Partner. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, remembering the desperate girl who'd taken an unpaid internship because she knew it was the right move, even when everyone called her crazy. That girl had been right, and the woman she'd become was just getting started. 5 years after graduation, I was sitting in a board meeting at TechCorp headquarters when my assistant knocked on the glass wall. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but there's someone in the lobby asking for you. She says she's an old friend. Sarah Williams? The room went quiet. Everyone knew I didn't take unscheduled meetings. Tell her I'm not available, I said. She said to tell you she's not asking for a job or money. She just wants 5 minutes to show you something. I almost said no, almost sent her away. But curiosity won. 5 minutes, I said. In my office. Sarah looked different. Older, obviously, but also diminished. The glossy confidence from college was gone, replaced by something more genuine but fragile. Thank you for seeing me, she said. I know I have no right to your time. You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. She smiled sadly and pulled out a folder. I'm not here for me. I'm here because of this. She handed me the folder. Inside were documents, pitch decks, business plans, financial projections, a startup proposal for an accessibility-focused educational platform. I've been working with underprivileged schools for the last 2 years, she said. Volunteering mostly, trying to be better, different. I saw how many kids fall through the cracks because the system isn't built for them. Kids with learning disabilities, kids who don't speak English well, kids who need different approaches. I scanned the documents. The idea was good, raw but good. This is solid work, I admitted. I'm not asking you to fund it, or mentor me, or anything like that. But I remembered something you said about seeing value where others see worthlessness. These kids are invisible to most people, most companies. And I thought, maybe you'd know someone who'd care. I looked at her, really looked. This wasn't the Sarah who'd stolen my portfolio. This wasn't even the Sarah who'd called me 3 years ago, desperate and broken. This was someone who'd actually learned, actually changed. Why are you really here? I asked. She met my eyes. Because I spent 5 years trying to prove I was better than you. And all it did was make me worse than I ever thought I could be. Now I'm spending my time trying to help kids who remind me of who I should have been. Someone who lifts others up instead of tearing them down. That's very noble. It's not noble, it's penance. She stood up. Thank you for your time. I know you don't owe me anything, and I'm not expecting anything. I just thought, if anyone would understand betting on something everyone else overlooks, it would be you. She turned to leave. I should have let her go, should have let this be the end. But I'd been given a second chance once. Maybe everyone deserved that. Sarah. She stopped. Leave the folder. I'll look through it properly and see if there are any organizations or investors who might be interested. No promises. Her eyes widened. Emma, This doesn't make us friends, I said firmly. This doesn't erase what you did. But the idea is good, and those kids deserve someone who gives a damn, even if that someone is you. Thank you, she whispered. After she left, I sat with the folder for a long time. Then I made a call. Marcus, remember that conversation we had about TechCorp's social impact initiatives? I think I have an idea. 2 months later, TechCorp announced a new grant program for accessibility-focused educational startups. Sarah's proposal was one of 5 projects selected for initial funding, not because of our history, not because I owed her anything, but because the idea was good and the kids were worth it. Sarah sent me a single email. Thank you for seeing past who I was to what this could be. I won't waste this chance. I archived it without responding. Some stories end with revenge, with the antagonist destroyed and the protagonist triumphant. But the best revenge, I'd learned, was living so well that you could afford to be generous. I'd taken the unpaid internship everyone mocked. I'd built a career everyone said was impossible. I'd earned wealth beyond my wildest dreams. And now I had the power to decide who got second chances and who didn't. That was better than any revenge. That was winning. 10 years after graduation, I was keynoting a conference for women in tech. People ask me all the time how I made it, I told the audience of thousands. How I went from an unpaid intern to a Fortune 500 executive by 25. They want to know the secret. I paused, looking out at all those hopeful faces. The secret is this. Everyone told me to take the safe path, the prestigious company, the guaranteed salary, the impressive brand name. But I looked at an unpaid internship at a startup nobody had heard of, and I saw something they didn't. I saw potential. I saw the right people working on the right problem at the right time. I saw value where others saw worthlessness. And when everyone laughed at my choice, when people told me I was wasting my degree, throwing away my future, being naive, I didn't listen. Because I knew something they didn't. I knew myself. I knew what I was capable of, and I knew that the best opportunities rarely look like opportunities until after you take them. The audience applauded. In the front row, I saw young women furiously taking notes. I thought about Sarah, running her accessibility program with TechCorp grant money, finally doing something meaningful. I thought about Marcus, who'd believed in me when I was nobody. I thought about my first life and how different this one had turned out. Someone once stole what they thought was my dream job, I continued. They thought they were so clever, so strategic. They got the paid position at the prestigious company while I took the unpaid internship at the startup nobody believed in. 3 months later, that startup got its first major funding. A year later, I was a director. 3 years later, a VP. And that prestigious company? It collapsed in scandal, taking everyone's reputations with it. I smiled. The person who stole from me thought they were winning, but they'd actually saved me from wasting years of my life on a sinking ship. So, in a way, their betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because it forced me to bet on myself, and that bet paid off better than I ever imagined. The applause was thunderous. After the keynote, during the networking reception, a young woman approached me. She looked nervous but determined. Ms. Chen, I just wanted to thank you. Your story really resonated with me. I'm currently deciding between a paid position at a big firm and an unpaid internship at a startup I really believe in. Everyone's telling me to take the safe choice, but you can see the potential everyone else is missing, I finished. Yes, exactly. I looked at her eager face and saw myself. 10 years ago, standing at the same crossroads. What does your gut tell you? I asked. That the startup is special, that the founder is brilliant, that if I work hard enough, I could be part of something incredible. Then you have your answer. But what if I'm wrong? What if it fails and I end up with nothing? Then you'll have taken a risk on something you believed in, and you'll have learned lessons you can't learn anywhere else. And that's not nothing. I smiled. But I don't think you're wrong. People who can see value where others see worthlessness rarely are. Her eyes lit up. Thank you so much. As she walked away, my assistant appeared at my elbow. The car is ready when you are. Thanks, give me 5 minutes. I stood alone in the empty ballroom for a moment, looking at the stage where I'd just told my story. A story about betrayal and rebirth, about revenge and redemption, about taking the path everyone mocked and turning it into triumph. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Saw your keynote online? Still giving me too much credit? You built your own success? I smiled and texted back. We built it together. That's what made it special. Another text came through from an unknown number. Your keynote was beautiful. I'm glad your second chance led here. Sarah. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, Me too. Good luck with your program. And this time I didn't block the number, because I'd learned something in this second life that I'd never understood in the first. Forgiveness wasn't about the person who wronged you. It was about refusing to let their actions define your future. Sarah had stolen from me once, in another life. But in this life, I'd used that knowledge to build something she could never touch or tarnish. I'd won. Not because I'd destroyed her, but because I'd become someone who didn't need to. I walked out of the ballroom and into the night, where my car was waiting to take me home. To my penthouse apartment with the city view. To my life that I'd built from nothing. To my future that stretched ahead, limitless and bright. Somewhere out there, Sarah was probably watching my keynote on repeat, wondering how different things might have been if she'd made different choices. But I wasn't thinking about her anymore. I was thinking about tomorrow's board meeting, next quarter's strategy, the next big thing we'd build. I was thinking about the young woman who'd asked my advice and whether her startup would be the next Vertex. I was thinking about my second chance and how I'd seized it with both hands and refused to let go. The unpaid internship everyone mocked had changed my life. And 3 months later, when the boss called, I'd been ready. I'd always been ready, because I'd already lived through the alternative. And I'd chosen to rewrite the ending. This time I won, and winning felt exactly as sweet as I'd dreamed it would.